As always, I am Bruce Wawrzyniak, your host for Catholic Sports Radio, and this episode is going to be quite a bit different than most, as I am happy to celebrate a personal milestone in my career as a podcaster. As some of you may know, I have been podcasting for quite some time with a variety of podcasts, including, of course, Catholic Sports Radio, plus the now defunct Capture Your Art and TASCAM Talkback shows that I produced and hosted for that pro audio manufacturer, not to mention the PBLA Podcast for the Pro Box Lacrosse Association, and my still active, longest-running podcast, Now Hear This Entertainment. And this episode, number 345 of Catholic Sports Radio, marks the 1000th podcast episode of my career. So in this episode, I will look back through the years and share some of my favorite moments from all of my shows. If you're a regular listener here on Catholic Sports Radio, you may recall some of these, but you might also hear something that piques your interest from one of my other podcasts. And if you do, in particular, Now Hear This Entertainment, I welcome you to dive further into those as well. Thank you again for your support, and I hope you enjoy this look back on my past episodes as much as I have enjoyed bringing them to you.
Hi, my name is Eric Larson, and I had the pleasure of meeting Bruce in January of 2017 while I was heading up marketing for TASCAM, a manufacturer of audio recording equipment. Since then, I've had the pleasure of teaming up with him on 2 podcast projects, as well as having the honor of being a guest on his wildly popular Now Hear This Entertainment podcast, which had already been running since 2014. So let's start there. The Now Hear This Entertainment podcast is an interview show where Bruce speaks with musicians, songwriters, producers, engineers, and others who work in the music industry. Running for over a decade and recently celebrating its 600th episode, this show continues to spotlight talent from around the world. Here's a clip from episode 283 in July of 2019, where bassist and songwriter Ava Gardner talks about still getting butterflies on stage, even while playing with a superstar like Pink.
Can you talk maybe from an advice perspective about you have to get over those nerves really fast because, as you say, here's a sold-out Wembley Stadium, and you're going, oh my gosh, but yes, oh my gosh, but here we go, first song, let's go. So how do you quickly get over those nerves?
Well, there was a lot of nerves for Wembley in particular because they were filming those 2 shows. So there was so many cameras. There's already a lot going on in the air because everyone's kind of, there's a lot of excitement, but there's also a lot of tension because there's a lot of pressure. And the first show at Wembley also happened to be like 90 degrees
oh my gosh.
At like 9 p.m. It was so hot. Everyone was just sweating all their makeup off. And so there was a lot going on. But when that happens, when you're really pushed and you really have all that pressure, for me, you just have to reel it back in and just remember that we're here to play a show. We're all sharing a stage. We're all here for the audience. The audience is here for us and just to have fun with it because that's why we're all here in the first place. So I think coming back to that place where we're here to have fun, and I think that can take off some of that pressure because that can make for, when you overthink things and sometimes that can be your worst enemy when you're overthinking things and you're trying so hard. And I think relaxing into it and just remembering that we're there to have fun really helps.
Yeah, I like it. Well, and a lot of it too is it's probably muscle memory. And so you just, like you said, I like that you said don't overthink it because you've been playing the bass for so long, you've been playing a lot of these songs for so long that it's just relax and let it happen. It's going to come naturally to you because you have been doing it for so many years.
I know it's easier said than done to just relax, but I've found that if you find a tool that helps you, whether it be taking a walk or breathing exercises or some sort of physical exercise, whether going to the gym or yoga, or I've been doing a lot of Qigong recently that's been helpful. So I think having something like that can help to get out of your head, because sometimes our minds can be our worst enemy when we overthink things and just thoughts are we're worrying about making a mistake or all these things that that can be daunting. But having something outside of yourself, some sort of physical activity can really help.
This next clip from Now Hear This Entertainment takes Bruce from the stage to the studio. In this episode, number 360, Bruce spoke with UK-based producer, engineer Dom Morley, who has worked with such artists as Adele, Amy Winehouse, Sting, and many, many others. Here Dom discusses how he approaches working with artists in different stages of their careers and fame.
I want to dig in and have you talk about working with A-listers versus the, for all intents and purposes, unknowns, the independent artist who is working hard but just doesn't have the name recognition. You're faced with giving them both the same level of service, yet knowing that they're just both operating from a very different place. How do you do that so you're not putting it on cruise control with the A-lister thinking, hey, it's Sting, he's got this. Hey, it's Adele, she's got this.
Yeah, I don't know. I just treat everybody the same, really. It's not really, I don't have much of consideration on that. I suppose when you're with the A-listers, then to an extent, there's more pressure. It's just from a different place. So I think if you're working with somebody new, there's the pressure comes from making sure that you're using their voice and you're not putting something on them. You know, you want to make sure that you're drilling into their personality and pulling out the thing that makes them want to do music and makes them an individual. If you're working with someone like, you know, Sting or someone that's just been doing it a very long time, then that isn't the pressure because they already know that. But you've just got to make sure that you're providing the environment that they're used to create and to be as good as they can be, because, you know, they've got more pressure as a A-lister than somebody who's doing a new project, because the person who's doing a new project, obviously they've probably paid for themselves. So there's definitely a lot of pressure there, but they don't have a whole company of people that are relying on them to do a certain sort of level of commercial success, which I think is challenging for anybody, particularly when they're doing an artistic endeavor. So yeah, I think it's just different pressure, to be honest. And you just try and approach it the same way, in that you make everybody feel as comfortable as you possibly can in the environment that you've created for them to record in, and just bring your A game for everybody. And then it sort of always seems to work out.
The next clip from episode 308 features the legendary Bay Area thrash band Death Angel. Here, vocalist Mark Osageda and guitarist founder Rob Cavastani discuss the reissue of the album The Ultraviolence and the interesting history that song has had.
Yeah, it's kind of spooky, kind of Halloween-like, Exorcist kind of sounding vibe that I was trying to create with the intro of that song. And that song was that bit of music was even later used 10 years ago now, but it was in a Carl's Jr. commercial.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes. It's even in a Carl's Jr. commercial.
How's that for a piece of trivia? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, decades after this, you know, after it was released, all of a sudden we were approached by Carl's Jr. for that to be used in the commercial. We thought when we were contacted by them that, you know, at first it was some sort of joke to say that, you know, that someone was playing a joke on us, but no, it really, yeah, it was true. And over the years, the people that we ran into, or we'd get calls from people going, am I tripping out? Like, my wife was watching something, and I was wondering, what the hell is she doing listening to the Ultraviolence? And they'd run in the room, and they'd see this commercial. Of course, people would get a hold of us, and it was pretty amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It was also one of the three songs that was on our Kill As One demo tape that was produced by Kirk Hammett, that inevitably got us signed to our first record contract.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of mileage on that thing.
Yeah.
It's our puncture-proof tire.
Good stuff. Well, guys, this band has been around a long time, well over 30 years, and as global a following as you have, there are still some listeners who are going to just be getting introduced to Death Angel for the first time. And thank you for that, by the way, listeners. So, guys, for the sake of those Death Angel newbies, let's go way back to the beginning of Death Angel. How did you choose the metal genre? And as young songwriters, what visions did you have back then? Like wanting to change the world or just wanting to kick ass?
Both. to that question, both. We totally wanted to kick ass, and we wanted to change the world. At least back then, before we realized that, the reality of that actually happening was not as easy as we thought.
Our last clip from Now Hear This Entertainment comes from episode 540 and features recording and mix engineer Mark Parfit, where he talks about being called in to team up with one of music's biggest stars.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. It's good to have you on the show. I appreciate you making time. Well, let's get started by having you share first all about the song that was just playing, the acoustic version of Snooze, including what your role was on that track and any other behind the scenes that you can give us from that project.
Yeah, definitely. This song, it's a special one for me because it's just the accumulation of years of just work and sacrifice to get to the point to even have this particular opportunity to mix this song. And on this one, I not only mixed it, but I, edited and comped the vocals. It was recorded by the producer, at least, as far as Justin's part, was recorded by the producer Carter Lang when they were, just at his house studio one day. And, then they called me to say, hey, man, can you come help me edit these vocals? Because, this is not my world. Justin just asked me, and I just, I have the gear here, so I did it. But we want to, make this sound right. And I think they want to put out the song, really soon, ideally. And it was cool because it was a song that it wasn't acoustic or anything. They were actually just going to do a version of Justin on the original music, and that's what they recorded it to, and that's what I initially mixed and edited the song to. But right at the final hour before we were going to send it to Justin just to get his approval, Carter had an idea. It was like, hey, this could be kind of cool if this is just an acoustic, because when he did the recording, he didn't write his own verse. That's what they thought he was going to do, is write his own verse to be a feature as a remix, but he just sang her verse. So it was like, what do we do with it? Like, how do we make it make a little bit more sense? And so he's like, well, maybe let's just what if we do it acoustic? I was like, dude, that's a fantastic idea. We can do it super quick too. So he pulled out the guitar. We recorded it literally in just a couple of minutes and chopped it together and removed the old music and sent it to Justin, and he loved it. They sent it to SZA's team. They loved it, and it kind of made it make more sense versus him just kind of doing a cover almost. And we made it more into its own little thing. So yeah, I was just blessed to be able to mix a song with Carter, and it came out, and I'm just really happy because this is something that it took me, years to even be able to get in front of Justin Bieber and be able to record him, let alone have the chance to mix a song. And,
Moving on to another of Bruce's podcasts, Capture Your Art was a project that Bruce and I worked on where he spoke with people about their creative use of TASCAM recording gear. In this early episode, episode 4, Bruce was recording remotely from the NAMM show, a huge music trade show held every year in L.A., and he sat down with the one and only Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein, guitarist for the Misfits, to learn about Doyle's history with TASCAM products.
All right, we're off and running on another episode of Capture Your Art. We are at the Winter NAMM Show 2018 here at the Anaheim Convention Center, and specifically we're recording at the TASCAM booth, and I'm using my TASCAM DR44WL, and I'm going to talk with Doyle Wolfgang von Frankenstein, who is no stranger to the TASCAM family. Thanks for taking time to talk to me.
Thank you, man.
So tell the listeners why you are no stranger to using TASCAM products.
I actually had a 4-track cassette when I first started, and then I graduated to an 8-track, and I also had the 8-track rack mount one, which was cool to put the demos from that one onto the new one I got, which was the 2488. And then I came last year, and you guys had a 32, and you sent me to 32, which I have not opened yet because I've been running around like I'm nuts, but I'm excited to use that. Yeah, I used it on both Doyle albums. Guitar and bass was all recorded on that.
And so
was the vocals.
What was? How did you ever get into TASCAM products in the first place? Who introduced you to them?
Alto Music in Middletown, New York. The guy I buy all my stuff from. Went there and bought that, and
And you've been a loyal user ever since, it sounds like.
Yeah, it works good.
So you are an American guitarist best known for your material with the horror punk band The Misfits. You joined them in 1980 at the age of 19. 15. Wow. And you already knew then that that's what you were going to do.
Well, yeah, once you realize that you're not a superhuman and you can't play in the NFL, then pick a guitar up.
I don't know, for those of you who aren't listening, you should see the pipes on this guy. He's got arms that he could probably snap me over his knee and then move on with the rest of his day like some of us step on an ant. So just talk about the fun that you're having with the music you're doing, touring all over.
It's a lot of work, It's fun because it's something you like, but it's grueling, man. Touring's hard. You play every night. It's just like a job. Fans, not fans, but your friends will come and see you at certain cities, and to them it's party night. And you like get off the bus. I want to go to bed. I've worked all day. I'm shot. But it's good.
Friends, it occurred to me that some of you are likely consuming this podcast each week through one of the podcast apps on your phone. With Alliance Catholic Credit Union, you can manage your money from your phone anytime, anywhere. Their mobile app allows you to add accounts, move money as needed, and deposit checks. You can pay others with Zelle and use Apple Pay or Google Pay to securely make payments on the go. Safe, secure, Catholic. Can your bank say that? Visit alliancecatholic.com and put your money where your faith is. Federally insured by NCUA. And be sure to tell them you heard about them on Catholic Sports Radio.
Bruce and I teamed up once again so that Bruce could share his knowledge about the art and craft of podcasting. He covered everything from booking guests and promoting the show to microphone selection and audio processing. This informative podcast was known as TASCAM Talkback and contained a wealth of information for people looking to get into the podcast game. Here's the introduction.
Welcome to TASCAM Talkback, the podcast that speaks to and with podcasters and streamers, where we bring you news, tips, and insights to help you improve the art and craft of your broadcast. Every 2 weeks, we'll talk gear, we'll talk content, and we'll talk about the business of podcasting. Whether you're a newbie or a veteran, a hobbyist or a pro, we're here to enlighten, entertain, and educate. And now, your host for TASCAM Talkback, Bruce Wawrzyniak.
A fun fact about that clip is that the voiceover artist who recorded the introduction was none other than Wendy Wheeler-Wawrzyniak, who also happens to be Bruce's wife and partner. In this clip from episode 12 from January of 2018, Bruce discusses his journey from being the talent to also becoming the engineer and the editor for his own shows.
On this episode, I'm going to open up a bit about my journey so far. You see, I was a content creator. Presumably by now, you know that I host a weekly podcast called Now Hear This Entertainment, which is coming up on its 4-year anniversary. So because of that, I knew how to get a podcast online. I knew how to get a podcast distributed, and I was actively promoting. However, I was mostly blind toward the editing aspect of the operation. Yes, you got me. I admit it. Hand on the Bible, I confess. What was my editing background, or I should say lack thereof? Well, I had done a fair amount of video editing, and I guess I should not only italicize in my speech fair in addition to video. Pinnacle Studio, I was working with that from time to time here and there, and then eventually just found some things about that I didn't like, and I moved into Sony Movie Studio. But as I said, I had done a fair amount of video editing, and I have done just the bare bones minimum in Audacity, which is a program that most of you are probably familiar with, no matter what level of podcasting you're at. Now, I used to go do my Now Hear This Entertainment podcast at a recording studio, so I only proofed what I wanted taken out, if that makes sense. I didn't actually do that work. I just I just proofed the file to hear what I wanted taken out. I got to see a little bit of it, meaning the actual work, the editing, but I didn't feel I really needed to digest what he was doing. But I'm going to tell you, even if you never plan to edit yourself, it's still better to know enough so that you don't feel that anything or everything can be taken care of in post. That's a real valuable lesson to learn right out of the gate here.
Next up is another of Bruce's long-running shows. This podcast is titled Catholic Sports Radio and features guests discussing the intersection of their sports and faith backgrounds. In the very second episode, hockey player Kyle Schmidt talks about winning the 2011 National Championship while he was also completing his journey to Catholicism.
When Kyle and I were exchanging text messages, emails, phone conversations in the lead up to our discussion that you're hearing right now, he sent me some bullet points and he said, we ended up winning the 2011 National Championship my senior year. What a way to go out. And then he moves into something else. And so he never even said in there, I scored the winning goal in overtime. So Kyle, I feel in starting to get to know you that as much as people would say there is no I in team, and so that's why I said we ended up winning the 2011 National Championship, Bruce, because our team won, and yes, I scored the goal, but it's not about me. But I feel like in starting to get to know you that you didn't even mention that in your email because you put God first and not, hey, make sure you mention that I got the goal.
Yeah, definitely. And even right after the game, still with my gear on, I mean, it was not to downplay winning a national title, especially the first in your program's history. It was incredible and everything I dreamed of. But the one thing that I couldn't wait to do was get back up to Duluth and later that month become Catholic, because I was in the RCIA program at the Newman House on campus with Father Mike Schmitz, and I knew I just could not wait to receive the Eucharist on April 23rd, which was the Easter Vigil in 2011.
In this clip from episode 80, offensive lineman Michael Leitner tells the story of how he was personally called off the field and into the church.
I was catching people so they don't, whap their melon if they fall in the spirit, from the priest's blessing. So I was catching for this guy in particular, and he came to a woman in a wheelchair. And he prayed over this woman for a good 30 minutes. I mean, it was all of that. And he was blessing her knees. And her parent, or for example, her husband came to me and said, my wife was in a car accident 7 years ago, and she was paralyzed. She had a severed spinal cord, and she had atrophy in her leg so bad that there was no way that she could walk. And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching this priest, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, well, this is futile. She's never going to walk. And he's praying and praying and praying, and I'm like, it's not going to happen. I start looking around, looking for something else to do, and God brings my attention back to her, and I knew it was him, and I was like, what? What do you want? She's not going to walk. And then I hear this voice, and it says, if I get her out of the wheelchair, will you enter the seminary? And I'm like, no, I got a whole career ahead of me. I want to play football. I got my kids named already. I just haven't found a girl, That type of conversation is going on in my head. So 20 more minutes goes by, and all of a sudden, I'm like, it would be pretty cool to see her walk, though, So I changed the deal. I said, okay, you get her up and walk, and you walk her around this entire church. I'll know it's you, and I'll enter the seminary. Well, within 5 seconds, she was up on her feet. And she took her wheelchair, and she pushed it, and she started doing a lap.
And as if Bruce wasn't busy enough, he also hosted the PBLA Podcast in partnership with the Professional Box Lacrosse Association. In this clip, Bruce speaks with John Livesey, who is one of the founders, as well as the president of business operations.
What better way to introduce you to the PBLA than to have as the guest on the first episode of the podcast one of the architects, one of the founders. Welcome, President of Business Operations, John Livesey.
Hey, Bruce. How are you?
John, this is an exciting time, no doubt. The understatement, Captain Obvious.
Yeah, no, it's a great time. It's been a dream in the making for a long time, and then we pushed the go button about a year and a half ago or so, and to think that we're a month away is extremely exciting, and we got a lot to do over the next few weeks, but it's go time. It's great.
Tell me this though: you worked in the NFL, the NHL. You were the commissioner of the National Lacrosse League for its first 3 years. Now here you are in another role as an executive with another sports endeavor. Isn't someone's professional career supposed to get easier and not harder the older they get and the more years they've invested in sports?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think that when you look at the business of sports, it's so dynamic and it's so ever-changing that if you get a chance to take a ride on the roller coaster of any project or league or team, it's sports. It's cool. It's great because, what I always loved about sports, Bruce, is that, there's a beginning and there's an end. You got all this excitement leading up to, the first game. And then at some point, there's the last game, the championship game. And, and then you recharge your battery and you do it again. So, I think with the business of sport being what it is and, so exciting and so dynamic, you jump in there with everything you got. You hopefully build an all-star team around you and you try to benchmark some of the best things you've done or seen. And hopefully, the result is what you expected when you started.
I like that. It's a good analogy, a good way for us to start.
We hope you've enjoyed this look back at Bruce's career to date, and if you'd like to listen to more episodes of the shows we've featured, you'll find links below in the description. Thank you for listening.